Right, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to also thank the organisers, Marita, who's been excellent with her organisational skills, and the rest of the team. It's been lovely to meet you and great to be in Dublin. And thank you to you for staying. This is the last session, so thank you for holding on. So my talk is about addressing childhood obesity in a multi-ethnic population, how we actually used our research to develop an intervention and put it into practice. So really talking about how we actually went about identifying the risk factors for early prevention of childhood obesity. And from that, how we actually went on to develop a theory-based, culturally appropriate, community-based intervention targeting early childhood obesity prevention, and some findings from our feasibility trial. So those of you who are not familiar with Bradford, Bradford is the 6th largest city in the UK. It's got a multi-ethnic population of just over 500,000, and there's really high levels of deprivation. 20% of the population is from South Asian background, so Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, with the smaller numbers from Eastern European and Vietnamese coming in as well. In Bradford, 60% of children are born into the poorest 20% of the population. And in Bradford, we have higher than national levels of low birth weight and higher than national levels of infant mortality. So I was working as a community dietitian years ago, and these issues were there. And so the Born in Bradford study was set up to investigate, the reasons for this. There's a website if you want to know more information. There's 25 nested studies looking at all sorts. So I'll be talking about the Born in Bradford BIB 1000 study, which is looking at obesity prevention. So the cohort was set up, the Born in Bradford cohort study was set up to actually describe the ill health and the health, describe the health and the ill health and their causes related to low infant mortality and low birth weight that we're seeing in Bradford. And the idea was then to use that information to develop and design and evaluate interventions to promote health. And in Bradford, we wanted to actually provide a model for integrating research into practice. That was really important to us. And by doing that, we would be actually building and strengthening the local research capacity. So that was the underlying principles. We have the website. We had funding from the NIHR programme grant to actually develop the intervention and to do the feasibility trial. The photographs are courtesy of Ian Beasley, who's a resident photographer, and we've got amazing photographs that capture the children as they're growing up. And I believe the children are 10 years old now, the oldest children. So recruitment was between March 2007 and May 2010. Bradford Royal Infirmary, quite a fertile area for recruitment. We've got 6,500 births per year, and half the babies born are from South Asian origin, so really good sample of representative multi-ethnic sample. So we recruited just short of 12,000 mothers, and the questionnaire is just under 10,000 lifestyle demographic information in those questionnaires. Blood sample from mothers just short of 10,000 mothers, and 7,500 samples from babies. 25% of our sample is fathers. So again, these photographs, we have got 176 sets of twins in our sample and 3 sets of triplets. And they're invited back every year to have photographs, and we've got some really nice photos of the children. So BIB 1000 is one of the 25 nested studies in the cohort study. So the aim is to study the social, cultural and environmental factors that impact on the development of obesity in a multi-ethnic population, and then from that information, use that evidence to develop a tailored obesity prevention intervention. So in order to understand the predictors and influences of health-related behaviours, we took information from the cohort, examining the risk factors or lifestyle factors, diet, physical activity, parenting practices, feeding styles, where people live, etc. We had social, cultural and environmental determinants of obesity. We had interviews, observations, focus groups with parents, with extended family members, with staff who already work in Bradford. systematic review was undertaken to see what existed already in terms of obesity prevention intervention in South Asian populations, and really there wasn't very much information that we could glean from that. Maria Bryant, who's here, led the nutritional audit of the home food environment. We wanted to see what kind of foods were available at home, and also we wanted to have an understanding of where people shopped, how they ate, how much food they ate outside home. So we had a local food outlet analysis. So I'm just going to show you just a snapshot of the results, because I want to move on to how we use that to develop the intervention. So I've pulled out just the dietary ones first, the infant feeding practices. So our data showed, so the other thing I wanted to mention, that was we've pulled out the two largest ethnic groups, so the white British and the Pakistani, or those lower numbers of Indian, Pakistani, Eastern European. The Pakistani and the white British were the two largest ethnic groups, so that's why I'm just talking about those. So Pakistani mothers were more likely to breastfeed in our sample, but we found that majority of mothers stopped breastfeeding around 6 to 7 weeks. And how many are breastfeeding at 6 months, as according to the WHO recommendation? This isn't even exclusive breastfeeding. So 15% of white British and 27% of Pakistani mothers were still breastfeeding at 6 months. However, none of the mothers in our sample waited till the 6 months sort of target or around that to introduce weaning. So 5 months for Pakistani mothers and 4 months for white British mothers. And what was concerning, and was quite shocking, was the sugar sweetened drinks were introduced in both samples around 5 months of age. So that was infant feeding practices. We wanted to look at diet in a little bit more detail, and we wanted to look at what types of foods were being consumed. So this is using a food frequency questionnaire, looking at the different types of key indicator foods that parents might be giving. So this slide shows that the Pakistani children, compared to the white British, what they were feeding. So they were less likely, half as likely to be giving commercial savoury foods, but almost twice as likely to be giving the commercial sweet baby foods. Chips, roast potatoes, almost 3 times more likely in the Pakistani population, and very low levels of processed meat products were given. Twice more likely to be given fresh fruit, but 1.5 times more likely to be giving sugary sweetened drinks. So already at 12 months, you're seeing the introduction of these sweetened sugary foods and the ethnic differences starting at this age. 6 months later, we measured the children again, assessed the diet, and we can see that once these foods are in the diet, they remain in the diet, but they increase as well. So commercial sweet foods is 4.5 times more likely to be given by the Pakistani mothers compared to the white British. Chips, roast potatoes are still there. The processed meats still low levels in the Pakistani compared to the white children. But sugar sweetened drinks, twice more likely to be given by the Pakistani children, compared to the white British. So again, the ethnic differences maintain, and the differences just increase. So just a summary of those. Pakistani infants had higher intakes of sweet commercial baby foods, chips and roast potatoes, fruit and high sugar drinks at 12 months, whereas the white British infants had higher intakes of savoury baby foods and higher intakes of the processed meat products. And by 18 months, these differences are shown to persist and increase, indicating that early evidence of tracking of consumption patterns. And our recent data looking at the diet of 3-year-olds, and it's showing the same, higher intakes of fruit, crisps, savoury snacks, sweet fizzy drinks amongst the Pakistani children, and then white British, higher intakes of the processed meat products. So those patterns are just evidently tracking with age. We're also interested in food in the home, and this is what Maria looked at. Which foods are available in the home of these families, and are there any differences in food availability between white and Pakistani homes? And just pulled out 2 significant findings of the much more fresh fruit is available in the Pakistani homes and sweetened drinks in the Pakistani homes compared to the white British. There was also differences in physical activity and sedentary behaviour. Not any difference in the amount of physical activity that both ethnic groups undertook, but differences in the types of activities. Pakistani children were spending more time playing actively inside the house, however less time playing actively in the garden or any organised games. Pakistani children also spent less time than the white British counterparts in proactive sedentary activities like colouring, playing with toys, etc., but more time engaged with passive sedentary, watching TV, watching videos. And there were differences in sleep patterns as well. Pakistani infants had shorter sleep duration. They went to sleep later and woke up later than white British infants, both at 12 months and at 8 months. So again, you take these ethnic differences in lifestyles into account. So we took this information and developed an intervention. I'm not going to go through this for time really, but we used intervention mapping, which is a framework for developing theory-based interventions, and I can go into that if anybody wants detail later. So we developed HAPPY, the acronym, which I'm really proud of. Had Acronyms Day. Healthy and Active Parenting Programme for the early years. And our strapline is Eat Well, Drink Well and Play Well. So it actually is focused on mothers at risk of having overweight children. So BMI, mothers who have BMI of 25 plus. It's targeted at fathers, family members and friends are also invited. The actual intervention consists of 12 sessions, 6 antenatal that start when the mother's about 26 weeks gestation, and then 6 sessions postnatally, which start when the baby is 6 weeks old, and they finish when the child is 9 months, when the infant is 9 months old. The programme is actually integrated into an existing parenting programme, and in Bradford we had the Family Links nurturing programme that was being run for the previous 5 years. So we integrated our healthy eating messages into this programme. And we used existing infrastructure and staff, so the Family Links practitioners who were already delivering parenting courses, we trained them up because they had the skills already to deliver and the skills of working with parents. It's run in children's centres, and so it's a community-based programme, and the sessions last about 2.5 hours each. It targets parenting practices, parenting skills and parenting styles, which are really key. We also, very much talk about maternal diet during pregnancy and post-pregnancy, and infant diet. The key messages around there are, breast or bottle feeding, whichever you do, is trying to promote responsive feeding, and that follows on to delaying weaning till later in the healthy weaning practices and healthy diet. Maternal physical activity, and that's really important. There's lots of misconceptions about physical activity in pregnancy, especially amongst South Asian mothers who think that it's not safe at all. So there's lots of safe exercises that are part of the programme, and also some of the exercises and activities that Grace talked about, the tummy time for the infant and the age-appropriate physical activity for the children. It's based not just on knowledge but skills and competencies, very interactive group sessions, and parents have lots of opportunity to share their experiences. And most important of all, it's culturally appropriate. We've undertaken a feasibility trial just to see if all the acceptability of it, whether it's feasible, to inform sample size, all the things that Sarah covered what a feasibility trial should cover. So recruited 120 mothers, intervention 59, control 61. Control mothers just got the usual care, the intervention, the mothers got the happy intervention. We assessed them at 6 months and then 12 months. Sample characteristics were matched between the two groups in terms of BMI, ethnicity and education. And intervention attendance was, we know from data that people don't attend all the sessions. So out of 6 sessions antenatally, the average 4.8 sessions per person were attended, and at postnatal 4.6 sessions per person attendance rate. Mothers found it acceptable. I was really concerned about the 2.5 hour sessions, whether that would be appropriate or acceptable to the mothers. Overall score 4.7 out of 5. And they love the content to learn about the babies, how they bond with their baby. That's part of the parenting programme coming through. But finding out that exercise is okay in pregnancy, breastfeeding, the advantages and disadvantages, that content, these are some snapshots really. But they really like that, getting out of the house and the peer support, meeting other people, coming to the group and sharing different things with others. They really like that peer support element of the programme. So importantly, did it have any impact? I mean, it was a feasibility trial, so it wasn't powered to show effectiveness, but it just gives you proof of concept that we had trends in the right direction. So we looked at outcomes at 12 months, BMI SD scores, and a percentage of children crossing 1 centile band. And you can see that for mean BMI SD score, it was 0.33 in the intervention children, and control children it was 0.53, and 18.4% of children in the intervention group crossed 1 centile band between birth and 12 months. However, 25% crossed it in the control school. So it's giving us, some encouragement that we've got the right components in place, and it's sort of giving us trends in the right direction. But obviously, we need a bigger trial to show effectiveness. And I'd like to acknowledge, importantly, the families and all the team behind this piece of work. There's a whole team in Bradford that have contributed to this. Really grateful for their input. Thank you.